Good afternoon and welcome to North Country Politics, Episode 12. I'm your host, Mike Willett from Colebrook. We have Representative Arnold Davis from Milan. And before we get started today, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been watching and the feedback, and we've really enjoyed this. Just let you know, sometimes our schedule is a little erratic on when they're put out. As Representative Davis and myself, we still work full-time, and so we get them when we can. And we also want to recognize our producer, Steve Corzin. He's putting this together for us, works with us on the technical side, and has done a great job. And as we all work, sometimes it's hard to get our schedules to align to get things out on an even schedule.
Well, and Steve also, he's got a pretty busy schedule. He works still, and he's a city councilman and volunteers. He's on the Republican committee.
And I enjoy my time with Steve because not being so close to Berlin, he really fills me in on what's going on in the city and, some of the trials and tribulations they have through budgets and some of the other things in the city of Berlin.
I don't know if I'd say I enjoy my time with him, but I tolerate him. Steve's a good friend of mine.
So couple of different things we'll do on the show today. I saw a couple of articles that I'd like to bring out, and they really hit me as relevant to what's going on. Plus, we'll talk about some bills we saw in Concord this week.
We had session yesterday, so we'll fill you in on a couple of the bills that we saw before us.
But one thing I saw online, and I read it, and it was written by Michael Moffett. Now, Michael Moffett is retired lieutenant colonel from the Marines. He lives in Loudon. He's been a teacher and a professor, taught in high schools, grammar schools, taught in colleges, community colleges, taught in the Marines. He's got a good handle. He's originally from Groveton.
Yes, he's a co-ops boy.
Yeah, and he has not forgot about his roots, and he still has that North Country common sense. And I saw an article.
And he's a state rep.
And he's a state rep from Loudon, head of the. I don't know. I know does a lot of constitutional amendments.
Yes.
And really involved with veteran affairs. Very strong on veteran affairs. So he did an article that I read, and I'd like to read it to the to our people out there, our spectators and viewers. And it has to do, and the name of it was The Unspoken Truths on Education Funding. Again, this is from Mike Moffett. It's a short article, but I'd like to put it out there. Some truths are unspoken. There are plenty of examples, and there are understandable reasons why these truths are unspoken. So here's a good New Hampshire example of an unspoken truth. Learning is not a serious priority for many proponents of higher educational spending. I write that as someone who spent much of his life in education, having taught in public, parochial, and military schools, as well as the community college and university levels. A member of the NEA and SEA, I served on 2 different school boards and did several terms on our House Education Committee. So let's speak some educational establishment truths. Many folks see school funding issue for what it is, a Trojan horse to advance a hidden agenda that involves creating a state income tax. Progressives are quietly okay with the excessive education spending that raises our property tax to painful levels. Some on the blue team perhaps even seek to exploit the fiscal pain they inflict. People who should know better claim that Concord should do more. But unlike Washington, D.C., Concord cannot print money. Many folks don't understand that, thus the need for better civics education, but I digress, he says. A blue mantra is property tax relief. Progressives want an income tax on the rich to lower property taxes, but overtaxing to address overtaxing is not only counterintuitive, it is counterfactual. Ask Connecticut, New Jersey, or any other blue state.
Exactly.
A recent House hearing on CACR 12 resulted in people speaking previously unspoken truths. Local blues and education establishment types oppose a proposed income tax constitutional resolution being on our November ballots because it would actually allow citizens a say. Liberals desperately want a New Hampshire income tax empowering them to grow government and hire people who will redirect their higher wages to blue politicians. This happens routinely in the education world. Campaign donations are public. It is really a form of money laundering, a sordid shell game. especially considering that we spend around $23,000 per student, more than any other state, during a time of decreasing enrollments and lower test scores. Claremont already gets about $13,000 per student annually from Concord, with millions of dollars mysteriously disappearing into some murky Sullivan abyss. This liberal government growth formula works wonders for progressives in places like California. I loved Ronald Reagan, but as California governor in 1968, he signed the Myers-Brown Act regarding collective bargaining for public employees, thus sowing the seeds for an ever-growing unionized public sector that has given California a top marginal rate is 12.3%. That rises to 13.3% for income over $1 million with mental health savings surcharges. Millions have fled for red states like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee, and even purple New Hampshire. But many are stuck in an ever-worsening fiscal spiral, not to mention all the accompanying overregulation. Major blue states' challenge involves funding pensions for countless new public sector employees. The pension commitment requires ever more tax revenue, and blue states are utterly screwed until someday, inevitably, they somehow declare bankruptcy, as Cleveland did in the 1970s. New Hampshire is an island of fiscal sanity in a blue ocean of overspending and taxing. Maine has joined Washington State and others with a new millionaire's tax, a counterproductive, misbegotten levy that earlier just proved disastrous in Massachusetts, New York, and everywhere else it has been imposed. That citizen flee blue states for red states is a cautionary tale that New Hampshire's liberal income tax proponents ignore at their own peril. Governor Kelly Ayotte fully understands this dynamic and unabashed campaign to not mass up New Hampshire. Our governor was earlier encumbered by a pledge to enhance Group 2 first responders' pension benefits, but with communication and compromise, a tight 2-year budget was passed. New Hampshire's lack of a broad-based tax imposes fiscal discipline that serves us well. We are blessed with a chief executive and citizen legislature that navigates spending shoals without having to create or raise taxes. Thus, New Hampshire's astounding high quality of life ranking in so many areas, at least until we succumb to the blues. Make no mistake, most Granite Staters oppose the liberal taxing and spending agenda, even when it is dishonestly camouflaged by bogus property tax relief rhetoric or cynical school spending advocacy. That is the spoken truth.
Yeah. Amen. Well written.
Very well written. And I think the big thing that I took out of that is that we all talk about more money, getting more money in schools, but they never show a relationship to education itself. And I think that was well said, and like you said, the spoken truth.
Yep.
Thank you to, again, Representative Mike Moffett from, originally from Groveton and living in Loudon now.
Yes. Yeah, so I'd like to talk, Mike, about thank you for sharing that. I'd like to talk to you about a couple of bills that we saw yesterday. CACR 11. It's the extending the age limit for sheriffs in New Hampshire. This would take the cap right off it. So I think, would you agree that most of the high sheriffs have administrative jobs anyways? They're not out on beaten path.
Exactly. I mean, this is a mandatory retirement age that's in our Constitution at 70. And we all know, hopefully, our lifespans are getting longer.
Yeah.
And we did it for judges last year, year before. And like you said, when a sheriff or a police chief is at 70, still smart, a lot of it knowledge.
Experience.
Yeah, and they're mainly administrative roles. They're not out there doing patrols and physically doing stuff. And I would like to see it raised.
Presently, I want to say this is a 150 or 200-year-old law that we're just trying to. People are living longer now, like you said. I think when this was written, the average age was maybe high 50s
or low 50s.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree 100%.
Well, this got the majority vote, but it needs 250. It needs 3/5 of the total body to pass as a constitutional amendment. So overall, it failed.
It did, and it drives me crazy. And the thing is, why not vote for this and put it on every town's ballot.
That's right.
They're going to make the decision, and what's the harm? Why wouldn't you want to let our state population decide this?
Let the people have their say.
Exactly.
Exactly. Another one, and this one, boy, I can't see anybody voting against this. Senate Bill 460, the Prowler bill they were calling it. What this bill did was it would create a Class B felony for any Tier 3 sex offenders. Now, Mike, what a Tier 3 sex offender is? That's somebody that's had physical contact, an adult, with somebody under the age of 13.
That's the worst of the worst.
So what this bill did was it restricted them from 500 feet from parks, from schools, from daycares, from community pools, these type of things where children gather. Now, I would like that to be a safe zone for the children, and get them away from the computers, get them outside, get them playing in the parks, get them at the public pools. And they tried everything. They tried to table this bill. They tried to kill this bill. They tried an amendment to this bill, and this bill finally it passed with nearly. I don't know if all of them did, but it ended up passing on a voice vote. But nearly, when the roll call votes were in place, nearly every Democrat voted to kill this bill.
And it doesn't make any sense. You know, the thing was, their reasoning was, well, what if there's nobody at school? Why should this pedophile have to stay away from school if there's nobody there? And you know what? I can't bring my gun into school if there's nobody there. It's a gun-free zone. But so you're saying, don't bring a gun in, but we welcome pedophiles.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It just doesn't make any sense.
It's a good bill. It passed. We got it through. Yep.
But not without.
It was some effort.
It was close, and a lot of those, like you said, roll call votes. Please go to the New Hampshire General Court website and see how people voted on this bill.
Yeah. Oh, now. We've got a little segment that tonight's show will be short, but we usually have one. What were they thinking?
What were you thinking? Were you thinking?
Senate Bill 559 to reduce the minimum speed limit from 25 to 20. Can you drive that slow?
No, I don't think so. I'm very careful at schools, and we all know that schools are very important. But to restrict, to change, drop the any other speed limit from 25 to 20, and excluding special zones like hospital zones, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
And the DOT's comment on it was 20 miles an hour is painfully slow.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to get a ticket for going that slow, but what were they thinking, Mike?
what were they thinking on that one?
I'm going to let you take this next one, Senate Bill 101.
Senate Bill 101 is a really important bill for the state of New Hampshire. And what it was for open enrollment. There was a lot of debate, and we know this has been a very volatile subject, and it failed. And I was really surprised that it did. And I give a lot of credit to the unions and the school board association stuff, because every school that I know had the same kind of thing on their ballot this year.
Yep.
We'll let one or two students come to our school, but we're not letting any go. Well, you know what? When a student goes, someone's got to come. Someone comes, they got to go. It means one school takes in, one school loses. And they all say, oh, it's going to kill our schools. And to a point that I kind of look at it as, in the long run, it's going to help our schools. And they found through California, Wisconsin, and I almost want to say it was Michigan, but I know Wisconsin and California for sure, that when they had open enrollment, they had some schools that suffered. But it forced the schools to get better, and they attracted their students back, and it helped their test scores, it brought their students back, and it's a way to force a school, either you're going to have to get better to attract your students, or you're not.
Well, that's a very good point, because the way I look at this, what are you doing to attract kids to your school? Here's an opportunity for schools to force themselves to become better. We have a record number of homeschoolers, of charter schoolers. What I'm all for the public school system.
Me too.
I'm a product of it as long
too.
as well as my wife, my children, my grandchildren, and I support the school systems, but they need to improve. I don't know the answers, but something has to change here. So this gives them the opportunity to get creative and figure out what can we do to not be a school that loses 5 kids, that attracts 5 kids. And I've heard you say this before, they have a responsibility to the town, or the select board does, to try to bring as much money as they can to that town and help out.
They have a fiduciary responsibility to attract as much money as they can. And statistically, there are a lot of states that have open enrollment, and statistically, only 1 to 2% of the students actually take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I sit on the Fish and Game Committee with Chairman Jim Spillane from Dairyfield, and he's a very active social media type guy. And he had put a statement out on X, former Twitter, talking about open enrollment to some of the people who are questioning about it. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to take a quick minute and read it, because
Sure.
I thought it was very poignant and right on point.
Well, you're such a voracious reader. I'm anxious to hear this.
So, again, this is from Representative Jim Spillane, who is the chairman of the Fish and Game Committee and a Republican from Dairyfield, New Hampshire. Thank you for taking some time to write and to outline the concerns raised by your board and residents. I appreciate the level of engagement your community has had on this issue. That said, I want to be very direct about why I support Senate Bill 101 and why the situation described in Wallingford is, in fact, a clear example of why this legislation is necessary. Your district's decision to limit incoming students to 2 while prohibiting any students to leave is precisely the kind of local policy loophole that undermines the fundamental purpose of open enrollment. It effectively traps families within a system, regardless of whether that system is the right fit for the child. It's not a principle that we should be defending. Families, not districts, should have the primary say in where their children are educated. When a school board adopts a policy that allows no one to leave, it ceases to be about community and becomes about control. You characterize open enrollment as a threat. I view it as an opportunity. If a school is truly delivering a top-tier education, it will not lose students. It will attract them. Parents will seek it out. Enrollment will grow organically based on the merit and outcomes. This is how every other successful system operates. Conversely, if there's a concern that students will leave in meaningful numbers when given the option, that is not a reason to restrict their movement. It is a signal that improvement is needed. Locking students into a system based solely on zip code, particularly when better fitting education environments may exist nearby, is not a defensible policy position. SB 101 introduces a degree of accountability and competition that has long been absent. It does not dismantle local schools. It simply ensures that they must compete to retain and attract students by delivering quality education. That pressure, while uncomfortable for some districts, ultimately benefits students and families. I understand the concerns about budgeting, capacity, and logistics. Those are real operational challenges, but they cannot outweigh a child's opportunity to access an education that better meets their needs. At its core, this legislation is about fairness and access. It ensures that a student's future is not dictated solely by the town they happen to live in. For these reasons, I will be supporting Senate Bill 101.
Boy, that's very well written. I agree.
I agree too. That hits the nail on the head. You know, by not allowing students to leave, you're holding them hostage. And how that benefits anyone, I don't know. If you could attract, I look in Colebrook, if we could attract 10 students and get their state aid at $9,000 a piece, so we've added an extra $90,000 into our budget to help offset property taxes. There's no more staff needed. There's no more cost involved. And you know what? The school that lost that money, they might be upset, but you know what? They're saving the money. They don't have to educate those students either.
Yeah.
So I really think that eventually this is going to happen, and I think it's very important that it does.
Now, Florida, Governor DeSantis, when he made his presidential run, we had the opportunity to meet him a few times, and he had told me that by doing this in Florida, it made competition amongst the school systems, and it made them all better. Yeah.
I agree. And
Very
when we have some
successful.
competency test scores in the North Country of reading of 17% or math of 15%, how do you expect a graduating senior to get through college that can't properly read or can't properly do algebra, the mathematics that they need is 15%?
Yep.
So, and I'm not blaming the schools. There's some issues and there's some mandates that they can't get around, but we have to think outside the box. And that's why I think that this competition thing will help schools improve in the long run. And just throwing money at the problem doesn't, in my mind, doesn't solve it.
Right. Right. No, that's a good point. And that bill actually failed yesterday.
It did.
Well, it got tabled.
It got tabled. And I don't think it's dead. I think we're going to have a resurrection here sometime in the
We'll
next
see.
few
We'll
weeks.
see. Do we have the numbers? We'll see. But I believe it's not over yet.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
And I don't see these children leaving in like mass exoduses. I 1 or 2% maybe across the state will change. I see this being something that's blown up out of proportion.
Yep.
It's an opportunity for a few. Not many will take advantage of that.
I agree. Something else happened this week that was kind of interesting. A month or so ago, I had a constituent contact me talking about driver's ed. And it doesn't affect everyone, but in the North Country, like there's no driver's ed class in Colebrook. There's none in Pittsburgh. There's none in Groveton. There's none in Lancaster. So the North Country kids are going to Littleton for driver's ed. And their course is very structured and very, you got to be there. I mean, you got to be dedicated. So a kid from Pittsburgh is got a 3.5 hour round trip to go to driver's ed 2 or 3 times a week. It's a tough burden.
Yeah.
It's expensive. We understood that. So I talked with Director Department of Safety John Maraska, and he put a program together and with some other people, not just him, but some other people, so that the students in the North Country now, and he can go to Canaan, Vermont, where they have a driver's ed course and get their driver's ed and be accepted in New Hampshire. So we've got,
Nice.
it's a good, cooperative thing between the states, and they changed their program a little bit so it would meet what New Hampshire students need. But now the North Country kids in Colebrook, Pittsburgh, Stewartstown can go to Canaan right there to get their driver's ed instead of having to travel to Littleton. And that's, I thank Director Maraska. That was very much appreciated for the people in North Country.
Now, you know this better than anyone. When you get up further north in Coos, we have a lot of very small communities, small towns, and I find a lot of times we end up working with little towns in Vermont to make things happen. We first responder that comes into play. Also, sports teams. I've coached baseball teams where we would compete against a team from Colebrook that had Vermont kids on the team. You know, it's just kind of nice to see how we've got forced to get along because our numbers are so small.
And right now, in varsity sports, Canaan, Vermont, and Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, all their varsity teams are a mixture of kids from the 2 schools.
Yeah.
And I always said the people especially in Essex, Vermont, they're like us folks in Coos County. When you get a little further west of that, not so much.
Yeah, not so much.
So we're trying to see if we can reroute the Connecticut River around Essex County so we can bring them over with us.
Yeah, I think we get time for one more. Maybe you want to bring this one up. Senate Bill 482, it's cryptocurrency kiosks.
You know, I don't know a lot about cryptocurrency, but there's a lot of people that do and have done very well with it. And the crypto kiosks, from what I understand, they're like ATM machines. And there's some around the North Country. I know there's a couple in Littleton. But the problem is, it's such a new thing. There's not a lot of guidelines, guardrails, or safeguards with it. And people who are into it really understand it, and they do very well. But what we're finding is that the scammers understand it and are doing very well. And what they're doing is preying on our elderly. and they use it like an ATM machine. They'll get some kind of scam or something and say, well, go to this kiosk, ATM, and we need $2,000. Or if you don't send us the $1,000, you're going to be arrested because your taxes are wrong. And, the typical scams that we see with the elderly. And you say, well, really, how big a deal is it? Well, it is a big deal. There was over $100,000 lost last year in Littleton alone through these kiosks.
Yep.
Portsmouth, $2.1 million was scammed. The state of New Hampshire was, I think, if I heard right, over $24 million scams through these kiosks. So this is a bill to put some guardrails on.
Yeah, try to stop the scammers. Well, that got through on a roll call vote, 214 to 140. I have a hard time finding 140 people voted against that.
There was two again, not being all that familiar with cryptocurrency and how it works and everything. There were two factions. There was a Senate bill that the police chiefs of the state of New Hampshire supported.
Yes, and that's the one that passed.
Yeah, and the AARP supported. The other one came from the House, and that didn't have that support, and the amendment to that one failed. But the one from the Senate did pass, and I think it's headed for the governor's desk.
Yeah, and that the way it came out is exactly how I voted.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too.
Yeah.
And that one, I want to thank Representative Pete Morency, former police chief
Yes.
and policeman in Berlin. He explained to me a lot of it, and we really followed his lead with his knowledge and his expertise. So thank you,
Yep.
Pete.
Yeah.
Well, I think that wraps it up for this week
Yep. Episode 12 in the books.
in the books. Please feel free to contact us anytime through email. There's a lot of things going on in the North Country, and anything we can help you with, give us a call.
Yeah, any feedback, anything we can do to improve. And I hear every week from Nicholas Bridle about my attire, so enough of that.
Well, and like I said in the beginning, you just got out of work today. I'm on my way home. Our producer's just taking an hour off from work. So this is a lot of fun, and I hope our audience is enjoying the information.
Well, and just to keep them informed with what's going on in the North Country and around New Hampshire.
Again, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.